Imagine a place so bitter and cold that your breath freezes solid before it even leaves your lips. A place where the wind doesn't just blow, it screams with the force of 1,000 freight trains, and the landscape is nothing but a blinding, endless desert of white. In the year 1914, 28 men sailed directly into this frozen hell. Within months, their ship was crushed like an eggshell by shifting walls of ice, leaving them stranded thousands of miles from civilization. They had no radios to call for help, no GPS to guide them, and absolutely zero chance of rescue. By all known laws of nature, they should have perished in the deep, dark winter of Antarctica. Yet, against every single mathematical odd, they lived. This is not just a story of survival. This is the legendary, almost unbelievable tale of Sir Ernest Shackleton, the man who conquered the impossible and proved that human willpower can shatter even the coldest grip of death. To understand the sheer madness of this journey, we have to look at the man himself. Ernest Shackleton was not a man built for a quiet life. He was obsessed with the horizon, driven by a burning desire to leave his mark on history. The race to the South Pole had already been won by Roald Amundsen, leaving Shackleton with only one ultimate prize left to claim: the first ever overland crossing of the entire Antarctic continent. It was an audacious, incredibly dangerous plan. He named his ship the Endurance, a title taken from his family motto, "By endurance we conquer." Little did he know just how prophetically accurate that name would become. When the Endurance set sail from South Georgia, a remote whaling island in the southern Atlantic, the crew was filled with hope. They were a mix of hardened sailors, scientists, and adventurers, all bound by a shared sense of glory. But Antarctica is a cruel master, and it does not welcome intruders. As they pushed deeper into the Weddell Sea, they encountered pack ice, massive floating chunks of frozen ocean that choked the water. Shackleton, a master navigator, picked his way through the leads of open water for weeks. But the ice was closing in, creeping around the wooden ship like a slow-moving trap. In January 1915, just 80 miles from their destination on the Antarctic mainland, the trap snapped shut. The temperature plummeted, and the surrounding ocean froze solid overnight. The Endurance was completely immobilized, locked firmly in a vast, unending field of ice. They were stuck, helpless, at the mercy of the Antarctic currents. Shackleton immediately realized the gravity of the situation, but he maintained a calm exterior for his men. He knew that panic was a deadlier enemy than the cold. For months, the ship became a floating winter camp. The crew played football on the ice, trained their sled dogs, and staged theatrical performances to keep their spirits alive during the grueling, pitch-black months of the Antarctic winter. But beneath the frozen surface, titanic forces were at work. The ocean currents were moving the ice miles every day, and with that movement came immense pressure. In the spring, the ice floes began to grind and crash against each other with terrifying force. The Endurance, built of the strongest oak and fir, began to groan. Screws popped from the woodwork, and the thick hull started to bend. Shackleton listened to the ship cry out in agony, knowing that no vessel, no matter how well constructed, could withstand the weight of a continent pressing down upon it. On October 27, 1915, the ice finally tore open the ship's side. Water began to pour into the hold. Shackleton looked at his men and gave the order that no captain ever wants to give: abandon ship. They salvaged what supplies, food, and photographs they could, along with 3 small wooden lifeboats, and stepped out onto the shifting ice. A few weeks later, they watched in silence as the crushed remains of the Endurance slipped beneath the freezing water. They were now completely alone, thousands of miles from any human soul, standing on a fragile sheet of ice that was slowly melting beneath their feet. For nearly 5 months, Shackleton and his crew lived on the ice. They built makeshift canvas tents and survived on a diet of seal meat, penguin, and melted snow. The conditions were miserable. Their clothes were constantly wet, their sleeping bags froze solid during the night, and the constant threat of the ice breaking apart underneath them kept everyone awake. Yet Shackleton's leadership never wavered. He threw away his own gold watch and silver coins onto the snow to show his men that material wealth meant nothing now. Only survival mattered. He gave up his own warm boots to a crew member, and he spent every waking hour checking on the mental state of his men. By April 1916, the ice floe they were camping on had drifted north into warmer waters and was rapidly disintegrating. It was time for a desperate gamble. Shackleton ordered the men into the 3 small, open lifeboats they had saved from the ship. For 7 agonizing days, they rowed through tumultuous, freezing seas. Gale-force winds whipped salt spray into their faces, which instantly froze, encrusting the men in jackets of ice. They were severely dehydrated, suffering from frostbite and completely exhausted. But through sheer determination, they managed to land their tiny boats on a desolate, jagged rock known as Elephant Island. For the first time in 497 days, the men stood on solid land, but there was no time to celebrate. Elephant Island was a godforsaken place, a narrow strip of rock ringed by glaciers, completely hidden from any shipping lanes. No one was looking for them there. If they stayed, they would eventually starve to death. Shackleton knew he had to make one final, near-impossible move to save his crew. He chose 5 of his strongest, most capable men, including the brilliant navigator Frank Worsley, and prepared the largest lifeboat, the James Caird, for a journey that defied all logic. Their goal was South Georgia Island, the whaling station they had left nearly 2 years prior. To get there, they would have to cross 800 miles of the Drake Passage, notorious for having the most violent, treacherous oceans on the planet. Waves the size of multi-story buildings, known as Cape Horn rollers, routinely sank massive steel ships in these waters, and they were going to attempt it in a 22-foot open wooden boat, using only a sextant and the rare, fleeting glimpses of the sun to navigate. The voyage of the James Caird is regarded by historians as one of the greatest maritime feats ever accomplished. For more than 2 weeks, the 6 men fought for their lives against the monstrous ocean. They had to constantly scrape ice off the sides of the boat to keep it from capsizing under the extra weight. At one point, a wave so colossal struck them that Shackleton later wrote it was unlike anything he had ever seen in 26 years at sea. Yet Frank Worsley's navigational genius held true. On the 14th day, through the thick fog and crashing spray, the jagged peaks of South Georgia Island appeared on the horizon. They had reached the island, but their ordeal was far from over. A fierce hurricane prevented them from landing on the northern coast where the whaling stations were located. Left with no choice, they landed on the uninhabited, rugged southern coast. The boat was battered and ruined. It could sail no further. To reach help, they would have to cross the interior of the island on foot. No human had ever crossed the interior of South Georgia. It was a chaotic maze of uncharted, razor-sharp mountain peaks and deep, treacherous glaciers. Shackleton, along with Worsley and Tom Crean, set out with nothing but 100 feet of rope, a carpenter's adze to chop steps in the ice, and brass screws driven through the soles of their boots for grip. For 36 hours straight, without sleep, the 3 men marched through the freezing darkness. At one point, trapped on a high, freezing ridge as night fell, they realized they would freeze to death if they stayed. With no other option, Shackleton looked at his companions, told them to lock arms, and they slid blindly down a steep, 1,000-foot snowy precipice into the darkness below. Miraculously, they landed safely in a snowdrift at the bottom. On May 20th, 1916, 3 ghostly figures covered in grime, ice, and tattered rags walked into the Stromness whaling station. The manager of the station, who had known Shackleton before he left, did not even recognize him. When Shackleton revealed his identity, the tough, hardened whalers wept at the sight of them. But Shackleton's mission wasn't finished. His thoughts were immediately with the 22 men still trapped back on Elephant Island. It took him 4 attempts over 3 agonizing months, battling through heavy pack ice to finally secure a ship capable of reaching them. On August 30th, 1916, the rescue ship approached the foggy shores of Elephant Island. As Shackleton looked through his binoculars, He counted the figures gathering on the beach. He turned to Worsley, his eyes filling with tears, and shouted, "They are all there! They are all safe!" Every single man had survived. Despite the crushing of their ship, the months on the ice, the freezing open ocean, and the starvation, Ernest Shackleton had brought every last one of his crew members home alive. He failed his original objective to cross the continent, but in doing so, he achieved something far greater. He provided the world with the ultimate masterclass in leadership, resilience, and the unyielding power of the human spirit. When the world tells you that survival is impossible, remember the name Ernest Shackleton, the man who looked into the abyss of the frozen wilderness and refused to let it win. If this journey into the past has captivated you, don't forget to leave a like. It's the best way to support this project and keep history alive. To continue unraveling the mysteries of the most fascinating figures who ever walked this earth, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss our next trip through time. Until next time.